Have you ever found yourself doom scrolling through LinkedIn at maybe 11 p.m., reading a job description, and just feeling like you need a secret decoder ring to figure out what the company actually does?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very specific kind of late night stress.
Right. Because you know the ones I'm talking about. They don't just say, oh, we need a sales manager. They say things like, we seek an ambitious achiever to drive dynamic growth in a fast-moving environment.
Yes, the classic corporate word salad.
Exactly. And you sit there thinking, I mean, I want a job, but am I an ambitious achiever? Or am I just, broke and hungry?
It creates this distinct feeling of alienation, honestly. It's almost like the corporate world collectively decided to stop speaking English and start speaking a dialect called business.
That is exactly what it feels like. And that is why I am so excited about the stack of sources we are diving into today for this deep dive. As career coaches, we see this all the time. Today, we are looking at a curated lexicon of professional terminology.
But we should clarify, this isn't just a spelling test or a grammar lesson.
No, not at all. We are trying to decode the signals these words send. We want to help you understand why companies say seek a career instead of want a job, or why knowing the nuance between, say, perks and benefits might actually be the difference between retiring early or working until you're 90.
It's a fascinating collection of terms. And what I really love about this source material is that it doesn't just hand us dictionary definitions. It gives us the psychology behind the words.
Yeah, the hidden meaning.
Right. It breaks down the difference between formal and informal language, and it highlights the specific vocabulary that separates a mere job from a true career trajectory.
Our mission today is to help you navigate your own path, from the application pile all the way to the C-suite. We aren't just learning vocabulary, we're learning the rules of engagement. So let's start at the very beginning. The hunt.
The point of entry.
You are on the outside looking in, and the source material makes a really interesting, subtle distinction right out of the gate regarding what we actually call the thing we are looking for. It contrasts job ad with advertisement.
This is a classic example of what linguists call register.
Register meaning the level of formality.
Exactly. The source explicitly tags job ad as the informal term. It's what you say to your buddy at the bar. Hey, I saw a job ad for a copywriter. But advertisement is the formal term.
But does that actually matter in practice? Like, if I write, I saw your job ad in a cover letter, am I just completely doomed?
You might be, depending on the industry. It signals a lack of professional polish. If you write, I am writing in response to your advertisement in the Times, you are matching the register of the employer.
You're signaling, I belong here.
Precisely. You speak their language. But there is a much bigger psychological shift mentioned in the text right after that. It's a difference between the phrase to look to work in versus to seek a career in.
Oh, I circled that in red when I was reading through. Looking to work in sounds so transient to me. It sounds like my teenage years trying to find a gig at a video store just to, buy video games.
That's spot on. To look to work in is entirely functional. It implies a short-term need. It's saying, I need money, you have work, let's trade.
A transaction.
Right. But to seek a career in implies a long-term professional strategy. It tells the employer that you aren't just passing through, you are building a narrative.
If you are sitting in an interview and you say, I'm seeking a career in finance versus I'm looking to work in finance, you have just changed the entire framing of your potential tenure with them.
It shifts the power dynamic completely. Seeking sounds active and intentional.
Whereas looking sounds almost desperate.
It's the difference between hunting and scavenging.
I love that. Hunting versus scavenging. So we're seeking. Now, who are the employers looking for? The source lists some very specific ideal candidate language. The big one that stood out to me was ambitious achievers.
Ambitious achievers. It's a very heavy phrase. And it combines two things that don't always naturally go together.
How?
Well, ambition is the desire, is the internal engine. Achievement is the output. It's the track record. Companies love this phrase because it filters out the dreamers who haven't actually done anything yet, and it filters out the previously successful people who are now tired and just want to coast.
They want the hybrid, hungry and proven.
Exactly.
But they also want them to be, and I was actually surprised by how blunt the source was about this money motivated.
Yes. Usually we dance around this in corporate culture.
Oh, totally. We talk about passion and the company mission, and we're a family.
But the source explicitly pairs money motivated with being eager. In roles like sales, investment banking, or high-stakes consulting, if you pretend you aren't money motivated, they might actually trust you less.
Because if you aren't there for the financial upside, how do they incentivize you?
That's exactly it. If you are money motivated, management knows exactly which lever to pull to get you to work late or push harder. It's simply about alignment of incentives.
The text also mentions that the ultimate goal of the application process is simply to fit the description, which sounds incredibly obvious, but in my coaching practice, I feel like people overcomplicate this all the time.
They really do. They try to be everything to everyone.
Right, rather than just matching the keywords the employer gave them.
Fit the description is the first gate you have to pass. Before a human being ever decides if you're charming or smart, an applicant tracking system, or maybe just a very tired HR associate, is scanning to see if you fit the description. If you don't use their language back at them, you don't fit.
Let's talk about where these ambitious achievers are actually going, the environment itself. The source contrasts a dynamic, fast-moving industry with a static or slow-moving industry. Now, dynamic is one of those buzzwords that immediately makes my eyes glaze over. It feels like literally every company claims to be dynamic.
It is definitely overused.
Ah.
But look at the antonym the source provides. Static. That implies complete stagnation.
So if you identify as an ambitious achiever, a static industry is basically a trap.
Yes, you can't achieve in a vacuum. You need a certain level of chaos, growth, and movement. A dynamic environment is where you actually get to show what you can do,
But the source also notes that to survive that chaos, you need drive,
which is defined here as internal energy and the striving toward a goal.
which is really interesting to me because drive is so often framed as something you perform for your boss. But internal energy suggests it's for you. It's the reserve tank that keeps you from burning out when the fast-moving industry moves a little too fast.
Precisely. If your energy is purely external, if you only work hard when the boss is watching, you'll get crushed in a dynamic industry. Having drive means the engine is under your own hood. You are self-propelling.
All right, so we've decoded the initial ad. We've signaled that we are seeking a career, not just looking for a job. Now we need to look at the person inside the suit. Segment 2 is what I'm calling the toolkit.
The essential traits.
Right, and the source material actually pulls these traits from a section discussing an exciting outdoor career. But as I was reading it, I couldn't help but think this applies to literally every high-performance office job I've ever had.
I agree completely. These are the universal qualities of the modern professional.
The first one listed is self-reliance, and the definition given is confidence in one's own powers and independence.
This is a huge one. Think about the modern workplace. It has become incredibly flat over the last decade. There are fewer middle managers, fewer assistants, fewer safety nets in general.
So self-reliance is basically the opposite of needing hand-holding.
Yes, it's the ability to say, I don't know the exact answer right now, but I trust my own powers to figure it out.
Which dovetails perfectly into the very next trait in the source, resourcefulness.
The ability to find solutions. We so often confuse this with basic intelligence, but intelligence is just knowing a lot of facts. Resourcefulness is what you do when you don't know the facts.
Like when the server crashes 5 minutes before the big presentation, or the client absolutely hates the pitch you spent weeks on.
Exactly. The resourceful person doesn't freeze in that moment. They pivot, they find a back door, they find a way.
I always like to think of resourcefulness as professional MacGyvering. You have a paperclip and a piece of gum, now go fix the merger.
That's the perfect way to put it.
Next up is personal integrity, honesty, and principles.
This is the absolute bedrock. You can be ambitious, money-motivated, and resourceful, but if you lack personal integrity, you are a massive liability to the company.
In fact, an ambitious, resourceful person without integrity is basically the textbook description of a successful con artist.
And employers are terrified of hiring that person. It destroys company culture instantly.
Then we have tough mind. I really love this phrasing. It's not a closed mind, but a tough mind.
The source defines it as resilience and firmness of character. It's essentially emotional regulation. In a dynamic industry, you are going to get punched in the mouth, metaphorically speaking.
You'll lose a major client. Your pet project will get killed by the finance department.
Right. A tough mind means you don't shatter when that happens. You absorb the blow, you process the failure, and you keep moving forward.
And finally, the one that made me laugh a little bit when applying it to corporate life, adventurous spirit. The source links this to outdoor careers, obviously, but does a corporate accountant really need an adventurous spirit?
I actually think they do. But you have to translate what adventure means in a corporate context. It's risk tolerance. It's the willingness to champion a new software migration, or to pitch a bold strategy that might fail, or to pack up and transfer to the new Singapore office.
That makes sense, because if you have zero adventurous spirit, you become static. And as we learned earlier, static is the enemy of the ambitious achiever.
That's a great connection. If you play it safe every single day, you aren't seeking a career, you're just holding on to a job. Now, the source says if you combine all these things, self-reliance, resourcefulness, integrity, a tough mind, and an adventurous spirit, you become a very specific archetype. The high flyer.
The high flyer, it's such a great term. It refers to a very successful, promising employee. The person everyone in the office just knows is going places.
And it's distinct from just being good at your job, isn't it?
Yeah, being good at your job means you are reliable. Being a high flyer means you have real momentum. You are visibly on an upward trajectory. You are rising above the rest of the flock.
Okay, so we are high flyers, we are resourceful, and tough-minded. Now let's talk about what we get in return for all of that. Segment 3, the deal. Let's talk about the money.
The part everyone pretends isn't the most important part, right up until payday.
Exactly.
The source starts with the basic salary. This is the base pay. No bonuses, no overtime, just the meat and potatoes of your compensation. And ideally, this salary supports what the source calls a lucrative career.
Lucrative simply meaning profitable. But notice how the source pairs this with the term salary increments.
Salary increments, that's a very specific, almost bureaucratic word.
It is, but it's a good kind of bureaucracy. It implies structure. A salary increment isn't a random, unpredictable bonus just because the CEO happens to be in a good mood that day. It's a regular, scheduled pay raise.
It suggests you are in a system that formally values tenure and growth.
Yes. The antonym provided in the source is a drop in salary, which is obviously the nightmare scenario we are avoiding. But the presence of guaranteed increments signals real financial stability.
That's a really important distinction for you to look out for. You want a career where the financial growth is baked into the contract, not just hoped for at an annual review.
Exactly.
Now, this next part is my absolute favorite because I think companies intentionally confuse these two terms to save money. The difference between perks and benefits.
Oh, absolutely. This is a classic bait and switch in modern recruitment. The source lists perks as an informal term and benefits as formal. But functionally, they are worlds apart in value.
When I hear the word perks, I immediately think of the tech startup stereotypes. The ping pong table in the break room, the beanbag chairs, the fridge full of sparkling water or free pizza on Fridays.
Right, the nice-to-haves. These are things that cost the company very little overall, but make the office feel fun and modern.
Yeah.
But benefits, according to the source, are things like company cars and health insurance. These are structural, high-value forms of actual compensation.
So if a recruiter spends 20 minutes on a call talking about the perks, the free pizza, and the casual dress code, but glazes over the benefits, that's a red flag.
That's a massive red flag. You
Yeah.
cannot return on free pizza. You need the benefits. Perks are so often used to distract ambitious achievers from the fact that the basic salary is too low or the healthcare coverage is non-existent.
So don't get distracted by the shiny objects. Look at the benefits. Speaking of which, the source highlights some very specific leave types under benefits. Maternity leave for mothers and paternity leave for fathers.
It's interesting that the source splits them by gender specifically, which still reflects the traditional terminology found in a lot of legacy employment contracts. But the key takeaway here is that these are a core part of the benefits package. They represent time, which is ultimately your most expensive resource.
And then there is holiday entitlement. I really love the use of the word entitlement here. In the US especially, we often act like taking a vacation is a massive personal favor we are begging the boss for. Oh, sorry to ask, but can I please have a day off next month?
No. The source language is precise and intentional. It is an entitlement. You have a legal or contractual right to annual paid leave. It is part of your total compensation package. If you don't take it, you're essentially donating your own money back to your employer.
Don't work for free. Take your entitlement.
All right, so we've got the money, we've got the benefits. Now we have to actually do the work. Segment 4, the daily grind. This is really about workplace culture.
And culture is usually the primary reason people either stay at a company or leave it.
The source uses the phrase close-knit team, a cohesive collective.
It sounds so cozy on the surface, right? We're family here. But the source contrasts this directly with a loosely organized team. And honestly, the more I think about it from a coaching perspective, I'm not sure which one I actually prefer. A close-knit team sounds nice on paper, but in reality,
That's the core insight right there. A close-knit team sounds great, but it can also mean no boundaries whatsoever. It can mean rampant gossip, cliques, and intense social pressure to conform. If you are highly self-reliant, which is one of our key toolkit traits, a close-knit team might actually feel suffocating to you.
You might genuinely prefer the loosely organized team.
Exactly. It might feel a bit chaotic or disconnected to some people, but to a high flyer who desperately wants autonomy, a loose organization offers incredible freedom. You can operate and execute without checking in with the work family every 5 minutes.
That is such a good perspective. We just automatically assume close is good and loose is bad. But it completely depends on your working style and personality type.
Context is king here. You need to know yourself before you can possibly know which team structure fits you best.
Now, regardless of the team structure, the ultimate goal is job satisfaction.
The feeling of contentment. And the source links this directly to having a rewarding career.
I noticed the definition for rewarding had a real duality to it. It said it can be moral or material.
Yes. And this is a crucial distinction for you to define for yourself early on. A job can be rewarding because you are saving the rainforest. That's moral satisfaction. Or it can be rewarding because you are buying a second home. That's material satisfaction.
Or, in a perfect world, you get both. But usually, you have to prioritize one over the other.
Ideally both, yes. But often you have to trade one for the other. The key is knowing which form of reward you're actually seeking. If you deeply want moral satisfaction, but you take a job in a dynamic industry that is purely money-motivated, you are going to burn out quickly. You won't find job satisfaction because the rewards fundamentally don't match your personal values.
The source also lists two specific things that contribute to this satisfaction: a diverse range of clients and sales experience.
Well, variety prevents boredom. That's what the diverse clients provide. But sales experience is an interesting inclusion. The source lists it as a specific asset for job satisfaction. Even if your title isn't in sales, the ability to sell, to persuade, to move people to your point of view is very often what leads to that feeling of efficacy and control over your work.
Okay, so we're happy, we're well paid, we're in a team that fits our style. Naturally, we want to move up the ladder. Segment 5, the ceiling.
The hero's journey of the workplace. It's all about growth and the inevitable obstacles.
On the sunny side of things, we have further promotion, the standard upward path, and the thrill of being shortlisted for a job.
Being shortlisted is a massive external validation. It means you pass the automated filters, you pass the initial HR screens, you are in the finals. Even if you don't ultimately get the role, being shortlisted confirms that you are perceived by the market as a high flyer.
But gravity exists, and the source gives us some pretty brutal vocabulary for when things go wrong in a career. First up is to be demoted.
Being lowered in rank. For an ambitious achiever, this is almost a fate worse than firing. It's a very public statement that you couldn't handle the level you're at.
And then there's to be passed over for promotion.
Now that is a very specific, lingering kind of psychological pain. It's not just that you didn't get the job, it's that someone else did. You were right there, you were ready, and the organization looked right past you and chose a peer.
And if you stay in that spot too long, passed over, stagnant, maybe in a static industry, you might end up fitting this next phrase perfectly. The source calls it a fixed humorous expression, but I gotta say, the humor is pretty dark. The phrase is overworked and underpaid.
It's pure gallows humor. We laugh about it so we don't cry. But it describes a state of fundamental economic imbalance. The input, your effort, your drive vastly exceeds the output, your basic salary and benefits.
And that leads directly to a frustrating job, which is the exact direct antonym of the rewarding job we just talked about wanting.
Right. But there is one final barrier mentioned in the source material, one that is perhaps the most difficult of all, because unlike a demotion, which is an explicit action, this one is often completely invisible until you hit it, the glass ceiling.
I think we all generally know the term, but the source definition is remarkably stark. It calls it a level above which it is impossible to advance in service.
Impossible. That is such a heavy, definitive word. You can have the drive, the resourcefulness, the tough mind, and be a certified high flyer, but you hit a structural barrier. It's called glass because you can see the top. You can literally see the executive suite, but you are systematically prevented from getting there.
It's a real sobering reality check. It reminds us that while vocabulary is powerful, it isn't magic. Knowing the phrase glass ceiling doesn't automatically break it for you.
No, it doesn't. But naming it is the critical first step to navigating it. If you know you're hitting a glass ceiling, you know that simply working harder isn't the solution. The solution is to leave and find a completely different building.
That's a really powerful insight. Don't just bang your head against the glass. Go find an open door somewhere else.
Exactly.
So let's recap this incredible journey. We started by decoding the job ad versus the advertisement, learning how to signal our professionalism and match the right register.
We talked about becoming ambitious achievers by cultivating internal drive to survive in dynamic industries and making sure we don't fall into the trap of static ones.
We packed our professional toolkit with self-reliance, personal integrity, and a tough mind so we can become high flyers.
We learned to ruthlessly negotiate for benefits and regular salary increments, distinguishing them from the superficial distraction of perks.
We weighed the pros and cons of a close-knit team versus a loosely organized one, realizing that for some of us, autonomy might actually be worth more than camaraderie.
And we faced the harsh reality of being passed over, becoming overworked and underpaid, or hitting that invisible glass ceiling.
It's basically a full career life cycle wrapped up in about 24 words. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the ultimate takeaway here? Why does this specific vocabulary list matter to you, the listener, right now?
Because precision is power. When you truly understand these terms, you stop being a passive participant in your own career. You realize that a job interview is a two-way negotiation of terms. You realize that perks are often just a distraction. You realize that looking and seeking send two completely different signals to the corporate world. When you master the lexicon, you take control of the narrative.
You stop being a passenger and you start driving the car.
Precisely. You become the high flyer you're meant to be.
Before we go, I want to leave everyone with a thought that really struck me while I was reading through the antonyms in the source document. We talked earlier about drive, that internal energy. The source lists the direct antonym for to have drive as to have low motivation.
Low motivation.
It sounds so incredibly passive, and it made me wonder something. If language truly shapes our reality, does describing yourself as someone who is seeking a career rather than just looking for a job actually change your personal trajectory? Like, does the vocabulary you use on your own resume or in your own head actually reprogram your brain to be more ambitious?
That is a profound question. If you confidently label yourself a high flyer, do you subconsciously start acting like one? It's essentially the fake it till you make it principle applied to linguistics.
It's definitely something to think about while you're out there polishing that CV. Audit your own vocabulary, folks. Ask yourself, are you just looking or are you seeking? Thanks for diving in with us today.
It's been a real pleasure. Good luck out there.